Happy Friday and welcome to Yahoo Sports Daily. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. As always, we are stacked today with a ton of news to get into, including obviously late night basketball in LA that we'll get into in a few minutes. Kendall Baker going to join us to go over the weekend that we're about to see. Ben Fawkes going to get us all the gambling information we need. But Caroline Fenton, we start with the coaching carousel that is constantly turning and churning and burning all over the NFL. Yesterday, we get the news, your next coach of the Baltimore Ravens. We've agreed to terms with Jesse Minter to be our head coach. Jesse coming over from the LA Chargers, almost called him San Diego, where he was the defensive coordinator. To me, a shocking hire. For anyone that doesn't know this, this is the first time ever that the Baltimore Ravens have hired a defensive-minded coach to be their head coach. So for all the conversations we've had about what's Lamar going to think, what are they going to do for Lamar, and how are they going to keep Lamar happy, they instead stay sort of in the Harbaugh tree, someone that has experience there, and they bring in a defensive-minded head coach that is a savant. What do you think of the hire?
I love it. I love this hire. And Jesse Minter was the guy that I initially, whenever the Ravens decided to move on from John Harbaugh, he was the guy that I was like, well, that makes a whole lot of sense. You know, he's been in the building. He has familiarity with the organization. And then I was kind of the impression of, okay, well, maybe the Ravens just want to wash themselves of all things Harbaugh and do a total and complete 180, you know, go with a super young offensive mastermind kind of guy, like a Dragon Davis Webb or, you know, one of these, you know, a Clint Kubiak. And while I think Clint Kubiak would have been a great hire, and I think that had Jesse Minter gotten a job elsewhere, Kubiak would have been potentially the next Ravens head coach. But I love this hire for several reasons. One, John Harbaugh is not the caliber of coach and the kind of coach that you want to wash yourself of after you move on from him. John Harbaugh is one of the most well-respected head coaches in the National Football League. He has done so much for this Ravens organization over the last 2 decades. He won a Super Bowl in Baltimore, so it would make sense that the Ravens kind of want to stick with somebody in that tree. Again, like I mentioned, he's been in Baltimore before. He has familiarity with the organization. They know him there. There's a certain level of trust that already exists that you don't normally get whenever you're bringing in a new head coach. And I think a defensive-minded head coach, I know a lot of us were thinking, okay, Lamar Jackson, you know, you want an offensive-minded guy because we all as a football society are so offensive-centric. But the identity of this Baltimore team is and always has been defensive-minded. The AFC North as a division is very blue-collar, very rough and, you know, physical and tough at the lines of scrimmage. And I look at Jesse Minter's expertise, right? It's in the secondary. Well, they have one of the best defensive backs in the National Football League in Kyle Hamilton. That was the biggest issue and the biggest drop-off of this Baltimore Ravens team was on the defensive side of the ball. There was a very clear turning point when you look at the last couple of years with the Ravens organization. Pre-Mike Macdonald leaving and post-Mike Macdonald leaving. And it does not look very good for the Ravens post-Mike Macdonald. So what they're doing and bringing in Jesse Minter is replacing Mike Macdonald. It's a very Mike Macdonald-esque kind of hire to me. So I love the head coaching hire, but now Fitz, next is the offensive coordinator hire. That might be just as critical as the hiring of Jesse Minter.
You're 1,000% right. And I think that we got a statement from the organization in this too. The organization said, hey, we're going to fix our defense because we believe that Lamar can be flawless no matter what the situation. That's how I'm going to read this because, to your point, one former player and current analyst told me yesterday he believes that Jesse Minter is every bit the savant on the defensive side of the ball that Mike Macdonald is. So while we're sitting here getting ready for an NFC Championship game and we're constantly saying, look at what Mike does scheme-wise and look at who these Seahawks are, look at how hard they are to defend. I can't believe Baltimore ever let him get out of the building in the first place. All of the things we've said sort of fall into the logic behind Jesse Minter, who is revered by people that study the tape at that same level. So I think on stop here, number one, it's a great hire for Baltimore. But number two, to your point, I think part of what they're saying here is let's fix our weakness because we know our strength is a strength no matter what, and that's Lamar. They do need to figure out the offensive coordinator spot for this, and there's been some conversation. Tom Pelissero saying Joe Brady, potential offensive coordinator candidate for Baltimore as Jesse Minter fills out his staff. Inside Coverage yesterday talked a lot about this. Be sure to go out there and check it out. What do you think of Joe Brady in this situation? And Caroline, I got to be honest, I lean more to Cliff Kingsbury in this offense than I would Joe Brady, but I understand some of the Joe Brady hype.
I do understand the Joe Brady hype and what he can do for this pass game, but I will defer to Lamar. It's the exact same thing that I said about Josh Allen and the Bills organization, that any decision that you make goes through Josh Allen. Any decision that the Ravens make, and I would assume that they kind of, talked to Lamar about the potential hiring of Jesse Minter and that he gave it the thumbs up that they wouldn't have made a head coaching hire without Lamar's approval. I say everything goes through Lamar Jackson. And Diana Rossini reported this on the Herd, Colin Cowherd's podcast. Diana Rossini said that Cliff Kingsbury was the offensive coordinator of choice from Lamar Jackson. Done. That's all I need to hear. Lamar wants Cliff? Okay. Lamar gets Cliff. So that is enough. But then you also look at at Cliff's history in working with mobile quarterbacks. It goes back to his time at Texas A&M working with Johnny Manziel. It goes back to his time at Texas Tech working with Patrick Mahomes. His time in Washington with Jaden Daniels. I would think that Cliff Kingsbury was a massive reason why Jaden Daniels didn't have much drop off from the college level to the NFL level, why he was Offensive Rookie of the Year. You look at his 1 year at USC back at the college ranks. He worked with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams won the Heisman Trophy that year. Kyler Murray, obviously, in Arizona. So Cliff Kingsbury has a long history and a long list of quarterbacks that he's worked with that have a very similar skill set to Lamar Jackson. It makes perfect sense to me, Fitz.
Yeah, and look, I think the one part of it is if you want some of these guys, you need to move quickly. Understand that there's a log jam happening right now, sort of like a traffic jam happening when it comes to some of what we're seeing from a hiring standpoint, because so many of the openings are waiting to see what happens throughout the course of this weekend with the championship game so they can get second interviews with some of these coordinators. So knowing that there's been multiple reports that, for example, Davis Dragon Webb, who we've talked a lot about on this show, seems to target Cliff Kingsbury as his preferred offensive coordinator. If you really love Cliff, you better get ahead of it, because if Davis ends up getting a job somewhere, it might be tougher to get Cliff Kingsbury to come to your place instead of where he could go and work with somebody that he actually coached, Davis Webb. So, there are so many elements to this. To me, you're right. Whatever Lamar wants from an offense, Lamar's going to get. I have to believe that Jesse Minter had a great sales pitch and a plan for how to maximize that offense. Every single new head coach does. But this is the thing I tell every single fan base every single year with new coaches when they're hired. When the coach gets hired and you suddenly start hearing, this offensive coordinator, it takes them days and sometimes a week to land their offensive coordinator. That's concern, because understand that part of the hiring process is you come in with a plan and a list of names you think that you can get. So I don't know how deep that list is. I don't know what the intent was, but I know that the one thing you don't want to do through all of this is alienate Lamar even more, just because there's so much stinking noise right now around the Ravens and Lamar. Much of it, I think, unfounded. I'm going to go on the record and say loudly, I think people are just telling you Lamar is going to go somewhere else in a trade because they want the clicks from it. I don't think Lamar is going to go anywhere, but certainly the longer it takes to bring in an offensive coordinator and then what that offensive coordinator wants to do, I feel like it's all going to lead to just blatant speculation out of the gates all over the place. Speaking of offensive minds, by the way, we have some more breaking news this morning as we wake up this morning to news from the Buffalo Bills. They are interviewing Mike McDaniel, former Dolphins head coach, in South Florida today. Now, I want to stress, everybody's confused. They're sitting here saying, wait a minute, didn't you tell us a couple of days ago he's the offensive coordinator for the Chargers? What everybody seems to have missed in that is he has an understanding with the Chargers that if he lands a head coaching gig somewhere else, he's going to take it. And if he doesn't, he's going to become the Chargers offensive coach. So I feel like right now, Mike McDaniel out here doing these interviews, you got to feel like Harbaugh is sitting in L.A. a little bit puckered up, just a little bit. Hey, man, how'd it go? Like, hey, how was the interview? How'd you feel about things? Like, this gets a little weird.
Harbaugh's probably like, do you know how cold it gets in Buffalo? You don't want to go there. And I don't blame him for that. Buffalo, great people, cold city. This is an interesting fit to me, Fitzy. Just culturally, stylistically. Look, offensively, it makes sense. That what was, an issue for the Bills this past year is the weapons around Josh Allen. Well, if you're able to get a little bit more talent in there, let's say you spend your first round pick on a receiver. Well, I believe in Mike McDaniel's ability to make what is already an explosive offense in Buffalo even more explosive. I view Mike McDaniel as one of those extra tools and extra pieces and weapons for Josh Allen to work with, because that's how much I respect him as an offensive mind. But I also view Mike McDaniel as the perfect candidate for one of those guys who is a really good coach, will have a long future in this league, but got let go in his previous position for a reason. He's the perfect candidate for a couple of years of coordinator rehabilitation, as I kind of look at it. Guys that are young, who got fired as head coaches, take a couple of steps back, get out of the limelight as the head coach, cook in your specialty and focus on your side of the ball. And then your coaching candidacy will start to gain even more traction and you'll become even more of a buzzier name next coaching cycle or the year after that. I feel like Mike McDaniel just focusing on being an offensive coordinator for a couple of years, learning under the tutelage of a guy like Jim Harbaugh, who is, coached a lot of football in this league and in college football as well. I just feel like that's better for Mike McDaniel's trajectory rather than stepping into another head coaching job with astronomical expectations.
I'm trying to remember a recent head coach that was fired that was glazed the way we're all glazing Mike McDaniel, to use a term that the kids love to use right now. Like everything that happened in Miami happened under his watch. And that's the part of this that I don't understand. Miami underperformed. Miami had every weapon you could possibly ask for. They gave him everything that he could possibly want to cook with. And I feel like
not a quarterback.
Tua was on him. Tua was on him, on his watch. Tua got paid on Mike McDaniel's watch. And that's my biggest problem with all of this. Like, I feel like at some point we've looked at it and said, yeah, but Tua. Yeah, but, maybe guys just got distracted. Yeah, but, Tyreek became a distraction, or all of these things that we've said over and over and over again. That all happened in his locker room. To me, Mike McDaniel needs to answer how he lost in the locker room. He needs to answer why there were so many reports about players that simply didn't show up or showed up late or slept through meetings. He needs to answer why he essentially lost, to use a college football term, institutional control of his entire organization. Why did he think it was the right move to pay Tua? If he didn't think it was the right move, why didn't he say something? What did he do to work around all of that? Like, the number of things that went wrong with the Dolphins that lie squarely at the feet of Mike McDaniel. And all we keep saying is, yeah, but he's an offensive mind that's so brilliant. Yeah, he's a great offensive coordinator. He was not a great head coach for the Miami Dolphins. I'm sorry. That's just, to me, it's so clear that Mike McDaniel was not a great head coach for the Miami Dolphins. Maybe he gets another opportunity. But if I was interviewing him, I'd want specifics on where he went wrong, not where it went wrong, where he went wrong doing his job. Maybe he has those answers. I look forward to hearing it if he gets another job somewhere. What I do know is we're on until 11 a.m., so probably somebody will get hired in that amount of time. It's been that sort of chaotic week.
Speak it into existence.
We'll keep breaking it down. Exactly. We'll keep breaking it down. Plus, obviously, this weekend's epic matchups will get broken down too. But coming up next, this guy was absolutely on fire, but it wasn't enough because the clips are even hotter. We'll tell you about it next.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knippel and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see, he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knippel. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star, already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester Top Team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
The Clippers have won 14 of 17 games since starting the season, 6-21. No team has finished at 500 with that start in NBA history. Will they do it? That's the question people are asking, because last night we got yet a reminder. Since December 20th, no team in the NBA has a better record than the Los Angeles Clippers. I want to say that loud and proud here, Caroline, because plenty of people were ready to leave the Clippers for dead, and now all of a sudden they've gone on this run. Can they keep it going? Can they make NBA history to you?
When you say plenty of people, what you mean is us. We, as a show, collectively, Jason Fitz and Caroline Fenton, left the Clippers for dead. And it was for good reason. The on-the-court product sucked. We had the off-the-court aspiration of it all. There was nothing, zero redeeming qualities about the Clippers. And then all of a sudden, Santa granted their Christmas wish, and they've been, to your point, the best team in the league ever since then. So can they keep this run going? Why not? Like, that's, I wish that I had better analysis and a super, in-depth hot take for you there. But they've been on this run now for the last month and some change. And they've beaten legitimately good teams in doing it. Like, it'd be one thing if it was just like, okay, the Clippers had a long stretch of playing some totally terrible teams, sub 500 teams, so on and so forth. But that hasn't been the case. I mean, last night, for a massive portion of that game against the Lakers looked incredibly uninspired. Yes, the defense was bad, and that allowed the Clippers to really get off to a hot start. So many shots were falling, but that's nothing new with the Lakers. They've been bad defensively all season long, but what's been different with the Lakers, and what was different last night, was they couldn't generate any offense. The Lakers had an 18-point second quarter. And so on the Lakers side of thing, one, like, you're not going to play defense and you're not going to win very many games when you're only putting up 18 points in a second quarter when LeBron is, pretty much invisible for the entirety of the first half. But that's also credit to the Clippers for getting off to that fast start, for the shots falling early, and also being able to limit for what the Lakers wanted to do for a big portion of that game until the late comeback. But the comeback effort wasn't good enough.
I mean, the funny thing is the Lakers in this game were kind of like the Clippers. They dug themselves in a hole, and then they tried to get themselves out of it all game long, right? But to your point, I just think that at some point, you're right. Like, I owe the Clippers an apology, and I'll say that loud and proud. We were sitting here just a month ago trying to figure out when Lue was going to get fired and if they were going to trade everybody. We were asking every expert that came on, are the Clippers going to clean house? And the answer kept being, well, no, it's not really that easy. They can't. Turns out the answer is they didn't need to. And I get that the start was just astronomically bad. And now we're trying to figure out what's real, who they are now or who they were at the beginning of the season. But to me, what's real is that they're on a run. And, we're used to teams in the middle of the season having a lull where they just sort of go through it. The Clippers don't have the luxury of that. They're going to have to remain intense throughout the course of the long marathon that is an NBA season. I think that's a problem. I do think that, at some point you wear down when every single night you're trying to dig yourself back out of where you were. I think there's still a lot of bricks stacked in front of the Clippers. That doesn't change the fact that, like I said, since December 20th, no team in the NBA is hotter. They're 14-3 in that time. Like, when you start talking about just a level of ass kickery, the Clippers, I'm making that a word, the Clippers have put that into motion because they're finally playing healthy. They're playing explosive. They're playing the way that we thought the Clippers could play if we were playing them on 2K, right? And so what we saw last night was sort of the epitome of where both of these teams are. We saw a lazy Lakers team that looked like they were slow to close for much of the first half. A lazy Lakers team that just felt like they didn't bring the same level of energy, and they relied. Then it's like, oh man, we're in a hole. Let's get Luka to dig us out. Luka certainly had a hot run in this game, but my God, at some point we have to look at this and say, well, we want to figure out what moves forward. Why am I so willing to define the Clippers by who they were at the beginning of the season and not willing to define them by who they are right now? I frankly, this NBA season is so long and it comes in chapters. I'm willing to admit that the Clippers failed the first semester of their season here, but what they've done in the last month is redemption. What they've done in the last month, I think, really does play forward. So which one of these right now do you think is better suited to go on a deep playoff run? Which team is more likely to run it into the playoffs, the Clippers or the Lakers?
I think it's the Clippers, which is crazy. If you go back and you want to dig through some receipts, which I'm sure plenty of people would love to do, you will find clips of me saying that I think the Lakers can make a run and be one of the best teams in the West, and that the Clippers should fire everybody, trade everybody, move on from everybody, and rip it down to the studs. Life comes at you fast, Fitzy, because that has done a total and complete 180, at least in my mind. I think it's the Clippers. The Clippers are playing their best brand of basketball right now, and then the Clippers get Kawhi back last night, and it's a massive kind of offensive catalyst for this team. To your point, it feels like they are finding their footing. And if they can stay healthy, I think this Clippers team, and I do wonder too, can they make up enough ground to play themselves out of the play-in tournament? That I don't know, but they do look like they're going to be the kind of team that you don't want to face in the play-in tournament, and that you don't want to play in the postseason if they can continue this level of play, if they can find some consistency in this level of play. Because I'm not just going to forget about the bad Clippers that we saw in the first couple of months of the season. You don't just forget about that after a month of really decent, really good play. But what this past month has shown me is that I do have more faith in the Clippers right now than I do in the Lakers, which is crazy.
The crazy thing to me is how for all the things that we had to say about the play-in tournament when it started, the fact that right now you could get Golden State, the Clippers, you might get the Lakers or the Timberwolves in the play-in. Like, it's just the brands that could be in the play-in are absolutely incredible. I feel like you're right. Everything you said was absolutely spot on. My only pushback to which team can go on the deeper run is that I've seen Luka essentially single-handedly put a team on his back and take them all the way to the NBA Finals. So there is a part of me that in Luka I trust, even though the Lakers, let me be clear, I do not trust the Lakers at all. And I'm going to be clear for the 100th time since we started the show. I do not think the Lakers are built right to win a championship. And I don't think there's anything that man right there can do that will make them competitive with the best of the best in the West. Not a damn thing. But if I'm being asked who can send them on a deeper run, for me, what I've seen in my life is plenty of times that in the Game 7, James Harden forgot how to basketball. I've seen plenty of times where Luka took a whole team and said, I will put you on my back and I will raise you just as long as you give me that beer afterwards. So I trust a deeper run for the Lakers because I trust Luka that much. And I realize that is absolute brand bias to this point, but based on what we've seen in clutch moments and what it takes in the playoffs, I'm team Luka.
Last night, Luka had 32, 11, and 8. Just shy of a triple-double. And the Lakers still lost. Now, look, if that game was 5 minutes longer, maybe the Lakers do end up continuing to mount that epic comeback. They do happen to win that game, but it's not. That's not how games work. So even on a night when Luka has a silly stat line, the Lakers still couldn't do enough. Now, I know the Lakers don't have Austin Reeves, and maybe our thoughts on this team do change once Austin Reeves comes back and gets healthy. But I hear you on Luka, and in Luka we trust here on this program. Like, if you're giving me Luka and anyone on that Clippers team when you need a clutch shot when it matters most, when you need one guy to mount his best game when it absolutely positively matters most, I'm taking Luka. But I think last night was an example of even when Luka is Superman, sometimes Superman's not enough.
Well, hey, come on. The most recent Superman movie, Superman spent most of the time getting his butt kicked, and at the end, he rose above. Like, so maybe this is
always does.
That plot. I think there's one thing we can agree on. Both of these organizations are still kind of dumpster fires. Look, it's easy right now to pick on the Lakers when you got LeBron last night saying he doesn't care about articles. He doesn't care about podcasts. He only cares about watching golf afterwards. When asked about the Baxter Holmes report on ESPN.com, he made it clear he doesn't care about articles or podcasts, even though it's a media company. Anyway, he made it clear he doesn't care about any of the drama in LA. But also, like, we don't seem to pay attention to it anymore. But remember, the Clippers may have circumvented the salary cap and may still have penalties to pay for that. I don't think either one of these, like, this is when you've got one neighbor on one side that is just wrecked and one neighbor on the other side that is also a dumpster fire. Neither of them have their lives together, and you're just sitting there saying, I'm glad I'm not them. At the end of the day, most fan bases right now should be glad they're not the Lakers or the Clippers.
Yeah, look, winning is the ultimate deodorant. And that's what has happened for the Clippers over the last month. But to your point, aspiration, still a thing. The Clippers as an organization, not the best history in terms of being functional. But I do look at the Lakers, and it just feels like bad publicity after bad PR stunt, after bad article that sheds a bad light on this Lakers team. The Jeannie Buss article recently and how the Buss siblings have been fighting behind the scenes. She's saying LeBron James is grateful enough. And then did you happen to catch any of JJ Redick's press conference after the game last night?
No, I didn't
hear
JJ.
He said last night, quote, "We don't care enough." And that's the part that bothers you a lot. We don't care enough to do the things that are necessary. We don't care enough to be a professional. Uh-oh. That's your head coach saying that his team doesn't care enough, saying that his team doesn't approach games with the level of professionalism that's required of winning. Eek. Like, that's... I know it's recency bias, and I'm not going to say all of a sudden the Clippers are this super well-run organization because they're not, but there's some dirty laundry with the Lakers right now.
It may look like the Clippers have better title aspirations than the Lakers. See what I did there? Aspiration. All right. Look, and can't win them all. Thank you very much. That might have been a fart. Speaking of which, let's get to Can't Wait coming up next. Kendall Baker going to join us. We'll get his thoughts on an epic weekend of wild activity.
One school
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutier. I think he's going to be the next big African star, already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester Top Team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division, no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. That was what Raheem Morris said when they asked him, why did you take this job?
Yep.
And
That's
you still
it.
got those guys. And you still got those two guys.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star, already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester Top Team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division, no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. That was what Raheem Morris said when they asked him, why did you take this job?
Yep.
And
That's
you still
it.
got those guys. And you still got those two guys.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star, already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester Top Team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division, no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake.
So this is the number one offense in the league, Rams, versus number one defense, Seahawks. This is the ninth time that the number one offense versus number one defense have met in the conference championship or later since the merger. And in those first 8 meetings, the defensive team is 7-1. So that's good news for the Seahawks. It also is sort of perfect for the defense wins championships mindset. So just kind of a fun fact there. But these two have played obviously 2 great games already. I'm expecting another great one. This is going to be awesome.
This is the bardiest Bart that ever barded. Last week I said, look, I don't need Seahawks Niners for a third time. We just got it in week 18, and the Niners put up 3 points. I don't need it a third time. We're getting this game for a third time, and I'm ready for it. I could do a fourth. I could do a fifth. Like, it just felt like the writing was on the wall that it would come down to these 2 teams, and I'm so glad that it does. But, tired is watching the AFC and NFC Championship games this weekend. Like, everybody's going to be doing that. Wired is Alex Honnold, the free solo climber, climbing Taipei 101 live on Friday night. Bart or fart, free solo live event on Netflix.
Bart. I mean, this feels like, some people may say, oh, this is in sports. This feels like this is like Netflix's strategy. It's like sports and entertainment, whatever you want to call it. I mean, the pitch of, hey, you want to watch this guy free solo. So just for everybody understands that there's no ropes. He's just climbing this building live. I'm going to be very curious to see how many people tune into this, because it's obviously a bit of a fringe sport, if you will, but the concept and the setup is so wild that I guess in a kind of a dark way, people are going to, kind of tune in and be like, is he gonna do it? So Bart.
Look, Kendall, you're not wrong. By the way, shout out to the legend and my dear friend Elle Duncan making her debut on Netflix for that. Going to be absolutely incredible. But Kendall, I mean, I think what you alluded to at the end there, like, we always talk about hate watching and how, like, sometimes doesn't matter if you love or hate Howard Stern, as long as you listen to him, that's all he cares about, right? Like, if you're Netflix, you don't really care what people's intents are. But, like, this is very I'll be the old man in the room. Like back in the day when Evel Knievel would try a jump on the Wide World of Sports on ABC, like that. Half the time, even as a kid, that you tuned in, you were like, "Is he actually gonna make it?" The difference is, if he doesn't make it, I don't know what that looks like. I mean, I know what that looks like, but I don't know what that looks like watching it. So, like, this is I mean, I can't believe this is absolutely death-defying. Like, we're all going to be watching. Yeah. I cannot wait for this, just because we may never see something like this again, depending on how it played. I'm still not sure how one trains to climb this sort of skyscraper either, Kendall. Like, I think
very carefully.
Well, I mean,
yeah. I also, there's a lot of unknowns here. Like, how are they going to film this? What's the setup? It's really like a curiosity watch for me. It's like, is there going to be music? Is it just going to be quiet? Is he going to have a headpiece in talking? Like, I'm just curious what this watch is going to be like, and how long is that going to expect it to take? Like, there's a lot of things I just don't know about this. It just is driving my curiosity about it.
Do you remember several years ago, there was this like Shark Week event that Michael Phelps was going to race a shark? And we were all like, oh my gosh, we have to tune in and watch Michael Phelps. Like, what if he dies? What if the shark eats him? And then it turned out that it was like some CGI shark, and they just calculated how fast a shark would swim. And then Michael Phelps was just swimming next to this cartoon shark. I think we all kind of realized, like, duh, they weren't going to put Michael Phelps in the pool with a shark. Do you think there's an element of that here, of like, we're hyping all of this up to be this crazy, insane, never been done before event, and then it's actually not really what we thought it would be?
I hope not. That would be a retroactive fart.
Yeah. I love the thought of like Caroline's so right. This is everything. We're in a gladiator society now. Let's just admit it. How many people would tune in and then they would see if they saw like a safety net at the bottom, they're going to be like, ah, and then they tune out. Like that's it's not the right thing. I'm just saying that's how a lot of people are going to be. Nobody is putting their life at risk for Vandy, South Carolina women's basketball. This is a big one, especially South Carolina coming off of getting upset by Oklahoma last night, which was huge for Oklahoma. So where are you, Kendall? Vandy, South Carolina, top matchup in women's basketball, college basketball this week on Sunday. Bart or Fart?
Bart here. I think, these are obviously two great teams for the more casual observers. You see South Carolina. They should be heavily favored. I believe they are probably still favored. But Vanderbilt, one of the two undefeated teams left, them and UConn, and they are so fun to watch. Michaela Blake is maybe the most underrated athlete right now. I feel like she, for people who don't know, she's a sophomore. Last year's a freshman, scored 50 points twice. She's averaging more points per year this year. I think she's like third in the country in scoring. Absolutely electric to watch. Really, really fun guard. Can just kind of get her shot off. Has unlimited range. So this should be an awesome matchup. SEC, like Vanderbilt is having, what a year for Vanderbilt athletics. Football's amazing. The women's basketball team's undefeated. The men's basketball team was undefeated. They've now lost 3 straight. So that's they're falling apart a little bit there. But this should be an awesome game. And like I love that it's like Vanderbilt, SEC, South Carolina, not something you normally would think of a few years back as being like a top 5 matchup.
It's such a Bart. And look, Vanderbilt has beaten LSU, and they've had a lighter SEC schedule. So now this is the ultimate test. Now Vanderbilt has the opportunity to beat LSU, a top 10 team, and go on the road and beat South Carolina, the modern co-dynasty of women's college basketball, along with UConn. It is chef's kiss, appointment watching. For everybody who's starting to just dip their toes into the pool of hoops, kind of transitioning out of football season, this is the one to truly get you in the spirit of college hoop season. Okay, Bart or Fart, the Australian Open this weekend.
Okay. This is a fart. You know why? Because I have to sleep. And all the big matches are all the big matches are at 1 a.m. I'm sorry. When we get to the quarterfinals, and I quite literally have to for my job, I'll be up watching things like that. But the Australian every year, I'm sorry, as somebody who covers it, it is a nightmare to cover. I'm sorry, it just is. On the East Coast, particularly. So I look forward to finding out what happened in the matches overnight and watching the highlights if there were some good matches, but it's just going to be very hard to watch. And considering all the other things going on this weekend, unfortunately, a grand slam. It pains me to say it, but it's a fart for me.
My eyes have been on the amount of trash talking we are now seeing from tennis superstars. Like, I'm all in for sorry if you're not happy about it from Naomi Osaka. Like, I'm in for this level of just sort of chirping back and forth. So, yeah, give me. I'm with you, though. It's fine for when it is, but not at that time. What about UFC 324? This one's important because it's the UFC debut on Paramount. Kendall, I'll be honest, I'm interested to see what that sort of looks like from a production value standpoint. Does Paramount put their stamp on anything? But to you, is this a Bart or a fart?
It's a Bart, and honestly, for a lot of the reasons what you mentioned. Like, I'm just, as a media guy, as somebody who just loves like sort of the business and media sports, like I'm very curious to see what this looks like. It's obviously a new era. Moving on for the pay-per-view era. If anything, I'm honestly most excited to see like the numbers coming out of this, just because it's such a sort of paradigm shift and will say a lot for a lot of things in terms of just the UFC business model, Paramount Plus's reach. Like, there's a lot of stuff post-fight that I'll be interested to see, but I'm also obviously going to tune in. There's some heavy hitters here. I think Patty Pimblett, for people who don't know, even casuals, like that's a guy you can sort of start following. So, obviously, smart on them for getting some big names in this. And obviously they have another event coming up next week to sort of like really hit home that these are now available for streaming, non-pay-per-view. But it's just the start of a new era. So it's exciting for sure.
Absolutely exciting. As is potentially, maybe, you decide, Bart or Fart. Lakers Mavs in Dallas on Saturday night. So Bart or Fart on Luka's second return to Dallas.
So, okay, let's just to balance it a little bit. This is so hard for me to say anything's a fart, guys, but I'm gonna go fart here, If
Okay.
this was his first return, to Dallas, give it to me. He's done, like, we've sort of done that. We've sort of distanced ourselves a little bit. Obviously, this is his first time back in Dallas with Cooper Flagg in the equation, which, you know, indirectly was who they got for him. But like, Anthony Davis is out. The Mavericks aren't great. The Lakers are kind of struggling. Like, there's a lot of things that are working against this that, you know, a month ago, 2 months ago, or when the schedule came out, I would have penciled this in, right? But now it's sort of, for other reasons, not as exciting. So again, just to balance it out, I'll go for it.
I know it's the lighting here, guys, but there's definitely a frosted tips element to the LA version. Like, I get it.
He's
didn't
definitely
actually
Tanner.
frosted tips, but yeah, he's Tanner. Like, the hair's a little lighter. He's got a little bit more of a boy band vibe, like the bad boy in the boy band. Like, he's definitely like the tattoos and everything. He's the bad boy in the boy band. But like, I can't help but notice the frosted tips. And you're 1,000% right. Like, the story is a part. The game itself, I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Here's what I know. The ultimate partiest of parts is the Yahoo Sports AM newsletter. Be sure to subscribe. It comes into your mailbox, gives you everything you need to know. Kendall does a great job with it. Absolutely love reading it. It helps us every day for our show. You should check it out. And Kendall, we appreciate you hanging out with us. This was Who Needs Bart when we've got Kendall. This was the partiest of parts. We appreciate you, brother.
True.
Appreciate it, guys. I'm glad I got some farts in this week.
Yeah, you know what? So we all are. We all are. Coming up next, we will preview the 2 games of the Millennium of the Weekends. That's right, championship game previews coming next on Yahoo Sports Daily.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to
It's a good
this.
show.
Have
It's a
to.
good show.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knipple and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knipple. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
And then there were 4. 4 teams remain in this NFL season with the chance to go to the Super Bowl. How can each team get there? We're going to figure out the path to victory. So let's start with the Patriots. Okay, the Patriots coming into this. Plenty of Patriots fans have already heard all of the yelling and screaming about it's the soft schedule. They haven't really played anybody. They played the worst possible when you look at this, the way C.J. Stroud played, when you look at how banged up the Chargers were. We have been making excuses the whole way, and now they get Jarrett Stidham to take on. So what's their path to make everybody sit down, shut up, color in their books while they head to the Super Bowl, Caroline?
Make Jarrett Stidham beat you. That is the Patriots' formula for victory. And it is fascinating. I've been, tuning into so many podcasts, listening to local commentary just to kind of get my finger on the pulse of each of these respective fan bases and the national perspective as well. It is an overwhelming sentiment from what I've gathered that the Broncos are going to win this football game in spite of Jarrett Stidham, or even because of Jarrett Stidham. I hear Sean Payton's unwavering belief in Jarrett Stidham, that he handpicked Jarrett Stidham to be his backup quarterback. And there is a little bit of a revenge element. Remember, the Patriots drafted Jarrett Stidham out of Auburn. But I think that there is also an element of the fact that Jarrett Stidham has not seen live reps in the regular season. I don't care about the preseason, okay? Jarrett Stidham has not seen live reps and has not seen live defenses in 2 years, in almost 800 days. So this Patriots defense has been really, really good over the last 2 games in the postseason. Now, you could say, well, the Chargers have a banged up offensive line. You can say, well, the Texans offense was basically a double agent working for the Patriots. I hear you on that, but we also do have to give the Patriots defense at least a little bit of credit for how awful, truly, both of those offenses, the Chargers and the Texans, looked in those first 2 games against the Patriots in the postseason. So make Jarrett Stidham beat you, force the Broncos to have to throw the football, make Jarrett Stidham uncomfortable, and also for the Patriots, take care of the football. Take care of Drake May. He's been sacked 10 times in the last 2 games. He's fumbled, 8 times in the last 2 games? He lost a couple of them against the Texans. If CJ Stroud didn't throw 4 picks in that game, the Patriots are probably watching this game from home. They're probably in Cancun. So Drake May needs to take better care of the football. Take care of Drake May. Keep him upright.
Yeah, I think taking care of the football is huge. And also, I think the Patriots' path to victory is being patient. Understand that because it's Jarrett Stidham, you're going to believe, and because I do believe that the Patriots' defense is actually underrated in this conversation, you got to believe as a team that the Broncos are going to struggle to score a lot of points. So when you come into the game knowing certain times you come in, like for the other side of it that we'll get into in a minute, if you know the Rams are likely to put up 20, 30 points, then it changes the way you have to call your offense. I think Drake May particularly needs to just remind himself to live to see another down. A sack isn't always the worst thing. Throwing the ball away isn't always the worst thing. A punt isn't always the worst thing. Understand that you're going to trust your defense to win you this football game, and you're going to trust that the Broncos won't score a lot of points, so you just need to go out and manage the game. I think if the Patriots can stay patient and Drake May can really take care of the football, even if it means negative down and distance, I think the Patriots can win this football game. So the other side of it, though, is speaking of down and distance, when I talk about the Broncos and their path to victory, to me, Caroline, so much of that is about staying ahead of the chains on first and second down, because to your point, I do believe that Jarrett Stidham gives them a chance to win. I'm not just saying that. I believe that Jarrett Stidham can lead the Broncos to a victory. But it's going to take everything going right by everybody else, which means making sure that runs don't get stopped at the line of scrimmage. Even a 2-yard gain at least keeps you ahead. You can't get yourself into 3rd and 7, 3rd and 10, 3rd and 15. You can't commit penalties because you can't put yourself in 1st and 15. You've got to make sure that no matter what you're doing as an organization, you're staying ahead of the sticks, because if you stay ahead of the sticks, you give Stidham a better chance to actually have success. I don't believe that they're going to push the ball down the field a lot, especially early on. They're going to do quick throws, keep them comfortable, make sure that Jarrett Stidham feels right in it. But in order to run that offense, you can't find yourself in 1st and penalty long, 2nd and long, 3rd and long. You've got to stay ahead of the sticks.
You stay in 3rd and manageable. If you find yourselves in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10 plus, well, then you're putting way too much on Jarrett Stidham's shoulders. So yeah, to your point, to staying, just stay ahead of the sticks. Don't make Sean Payton have to, draw up all of these extravagant 3rd and long type of plays. So I'm with you on that one. Run the football. Take a little bit off of Jarrett Stidham's plate. And it doesn't have to be overly sexy. A pickup of 3 yards there, a pickup of 4 yards there on the ground. Well, now you find yourself in 3rd and 3, and you're kind of in the money downs. You're exactly where you want to be. And if you continue to run the football, well, then you just continue to eat up clock. The Patriots can't beat you if they don't have the football. I think the other thing, too, is make Drake May uncomfortable. I look at Will Campbell and the Patriots left tackle, and look, Will Campbell is my guy. But he has looked like a rookie getting his first live looks and first reps in the NFL postseason. He was getting cooked against the Texans defensive front. Now, look, I think most left tackles in the league will get cooked against this Texans defensive front. It is nasty and it is swarming. But the Broncos defensive front is no different. So this Patriots offensive line has given up a whole lot of pressures. Now Drake May has the ability to extend plays to make plays with his legs, but make Drake May uncomfortable. Force the ball to come out. He has been reckless and careless with the football so far in the postseason. The Broncos defense is right up there with the Chargers and the Texans, the defenses that have already made Drake May uncomfortable, but just didn't have offenses good enough or, high powered enough to overcome that. So I think making Drake May uncomfortable is going to be key for this Broncos defense. The key for the Broncos is winning this game defensively.
So let's go to the NFC Championship game, the Rams versus the Seahawks. What's the Rams' path to victory to you?
Make Sam Darnold turn back into a pumpkin. Like the Seahawks haven't had to ask Sam Darnold to do too much because they've been so sound running the football. They've made plays on special teams. The defense has limited what opposing offenses have done. So they're saying, hey, Sam, why don't you just for funsies throw the football like 12 or 15 times a game? When he doesn't have to throw the ball too much, he's not going to make those mistakes that we have seen Sam Darnold have a tendency to make in the biggest games. Now, the key there, though, is the Rams made Sam Darnold turn into a pumpkin in one of their games in the regular season. He threw 4 picks, but the Rams still only won that game by 2 points. And part of the reason was because the Rams only converted 2 of their 11 third down attempts. So it's not just making Sam Darnold turn into a pumpkin, it's also converting on third down. I mean, this is the best third down defense in the National Football League. Seattle's is. So convert on third down and also special teams. That's the one unit that I do not trust from this Rams team. I saw Rashid Shaheed return the opening kickoff to the house last week against the 49ers. And once he did that, it kind of ended the game before the game even really started. So it's not even just giving up some of those massive runs, the massive kick returns. It's also starting field position. You cannot start consistently within your own 20 and have the Seahawks start at their own 35 or 40. So special teams, I think, is going to be really where some of the margins differentiate this game as well.
Well, Nick Saban always told his quarterbacks, take what the defense gives you and eventually they'll give you the game. To me, the key here for the Rams is take what Sam Darnold will give you, and eventually he'll give you the game. If I'm the Rams, I believe Sam Darnold is going to make mistakes because that's what he's done against the Rams specifically. Now, I think this bleeds into the Seahawks' path to victory too, because the Seahawks' path to victory is simple: clean up the errors. If you're Sam Darnold, just don't turn the football over. It's that simple to me. If the Seahawks actually protect the football, they win this football game. There's zero doubt in my mind. The problem is, can they do that? So where's the line between pressing and then making sure that you're just running the offense the way you are, especially without Charbonnet in this game? Let's see how much of the load Kenneth Walker can have, and let's see what it looks like when you don't have two, sort of a zig and a zag at the running back position. But I think we're saying sort of the same thing, Caroline, because the Seahawks' key to victory is simply eliminate your mistakes.
Mm-hmm. It's do exactly what you did against the 49ers. I said it after that game, and I stand by it. That is the Seahawks' exact brand for winning a Super Bowl. Not just winning a game, winning the Super Bowl. And that was capitalizing on special teams. I mentioned the Rashid Shaheed kickoff return for a touchdown. That was playing stifling defense. The Seahawks never even let the 49ers past the Seahawks' 22-yard line. They held the 49ers to less than 200 yards. And I think this Rams offense is better than the 49ers offense. So it's going to be more difficult. I would be shocked if the Seahawks defense could do to the Rams what they did to the 49ers. But still, that's their formula for success. Playing stifling defense, don't let the opposing team in your end zone, and also don't ask for too much from Sam Darnold. I think that sweet spot for Sam Darnold is about 25 pass attempts. Once you get into the 30, 35, 40, if we find ourselves into a shootout, I'm taking Matthew Stafford in an offensive throw the football kind of shootout than I am Sam Darnold. So don't ask Sam Darnold to do too much. Whatever the Seahawks did against the 49ers, that's their formula for success from now until the end of the season.
The one thing we know is Sunday is going to be epic because these both look like they're going to be incredible games. Coming up next, from the best to the worst, there is one player that is likely to be selected first overall. I'm going to tell you why he's actually the savior for my favorite team next.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
So and I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's gonna have to carry the torch during this program. Like I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air looking around and no furniture around, but hey, he's gonna have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon. And I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
One of the smartest and, dare I say, best-looking people in all of sports media tweeted this out. I wouldn't be mad if Mendoza didn't take any hits for the rest of this game. Put my quarterback in bubble wrap, please. That's from me because, Caroline, I'm in love. I am in love, and I don't care who knows it. I'm in love, I'm in love, I'm in love. And his name is Fernando Mendoza. And, by the way, this morning, he's officially declared for the NFL draft. It is it's official. It's now here. He is declared. Yeah, I'm gonna admit it. You call him the cutie. You can call him whatever you want, Caroline. I am in love.
The cutie patootie of the year.
Right. How can you not root? Did you on the Tonight Show last night with Jimmy Fallon out there just talking about togetherness and Coach Signetti and bringing them together? I'm telling you, cutie patootie of the year. I'll take it.
He's cutie patootie of the year. And Fitz, I am not a mother, but I do feel like my maternal instincts kick in whenever somebody says something mean or bad about Fernando Mendoza. I just want to protect him. I just want to make sure that he's okay because he's such a precious little sweetheart. And I will say, and I'm so happy for you and your Raiders that it looks like that you might get potentially your franchise quarterback of the future. I am terrified of the Raiders ruining Fernando Mendoza.
Look, that's all fair. That is all fair. But you see the graphic there. And here's the thing. As we sit here right now on Friday, January 23rd, I am ready to quite simply say Fernando Mendoza is the savior that my beloved Raiders need. Now, look, at the end of the day, everybody has opinions on quarterbacks. And I want to stress this. Right now, Raiders fans everywhere are reading everything they can. And there's plenty of people that doubt Fernando Mendoza's abilities. Number one, I would say to you, who cares? Realistically, none of us are going to know for at least a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years, if we even have the guy. So whatever anybody says right now, if you're a Raiders fan and you're reading a bunch of negative about Fernando or people say, don't take him or he's not a franchise guy, who cares? None of us are going to know for years. So calm down, relax, and enjoy this moment of hope because I have hope. I have hope all the way up to my eyeballs for what I've seen. And that hope is real, and it started at the Big Ten Championship game. That is the day that I sat on the couch with the dogs, and I literally said out loud, show me what you got, Fernando. And on the first play, he got knocked you-know-what out, right? Just laid out to the ground, and then he got right back up. And just when everybody thought, oh, my God, Indiana might not have Mendoza for the Big Ten Championship game, no, he came right back out and had a great game. He made throw after throw after throw with pinpoint accuracy, which, by the way, turned out to be who he was for the duration of the playoffs. Look at the playoff games he had. He went into the national championship game with more touchdowns than incompletions. He showed you incredible accuracy where only his guy could get it. He showed you sideline throws where only his guy could get it. He showed you a willingness to run when he needed to all the way up to the national championship. And he showed you perfection with back shoulder throws, which we learned through the process was something he committed to getting great at this summer. Guess what? It worked because all he does is live, eat, breathe, sleep, and absorb football. That's what you want from a quarterback that is going into a tough situation. And then he took on Miami. And I walked into that game, Caroline, saying, well, you know what I don't want to see? I don't want to see him just fall apart because it's going to raise questions. Instead, he took on an incredibly tough defense, and they hit him over and over and over again. They split his lip open in the beginning of the game. Didn't matter. He kept getting up. He showed the other thing that we hadn't talked enough about in that game, toughness. He showed a willingness to put his body on the line over and over again. And just when everybody tells me he's not athletic enough, on 4th and 5, he has the called run. He's going to the wrong spot. Whoop! He makes somebody miss. He spins around and he dives, flying Fernando into the end zone for a touchdown that his team needed. And Miami answered that with another touchdown. What happened? Fernando never got too worried about it. He never got rattled. Every time he needed a response, every time he had to be great at the quarterback position throughout the course of this entire run against great defenses, he did it. And every time he got hit, he got up and said, hit me again. We never saw happy feet. We didn't see him dancing in the pocket. We didn't see him shying away from contact. We didn't see him lose his fundamentals. We didn't see him drop his eyes. We didn't see him sit there and collapse under NFL-level pass rushers. No, we saw him rise up. To me, no matter where we sit, and 6 weeks ago, I was asked specifically on an interview, what quarterback do I want? And I said 6 weeks ago, I don't know. I can't really tell you right now. There's so many unknowns about this position. Who knows if you got the right guy? But here's the thing that changed. Everything we saw over the course of the last month of the college football playoff showed us best v best. And guess what? Best v best, Fernando won over and over and over again. Even when the play wasn't right, even when the situation wasn't right, even when the game wasn't right, he rose up. That's the sort of leader you need in a city like Vegas. That's the sort of savior you need when your franchise is as bad as the Raiders. So you know what? Maybe I'll be wrong. And if I'm wrong, the internet will kill me for years for this. But I don't care. Because as we sit today, months before the NFL draft, I'm telling you right now, if you can't believe now, then what the hell's the point? If you can't believe that this kid can save your team, then what are you watching for? And for every single person that tells me don't let your team draft this quarterback, build the team around him, I say no. I don't know when you're going to be in the situation again to draft a franchise quarterback with the first overall pick where you're not compromising, you're picking. This, to me, is an ultimate opportunity for the Raiders to change their fortune for the next decade. It's the most important moment they'll have, and I'm in for every second of it because I believe, Caroline Fenton, Fernando Mendoza is the savior the Raiders need.
And that's how you should feel. One, because, if we didn't have sports, there would be no next year. What's the point of being terrible enough to get the number 1 overall pick if you're not going to at least be hopeful or optimistic of what that number 1 overall pick can bring you? Because to your point, I just got done calling him the cutie patootie of the year because I believe it, because he is the sweetest, precious, most angelous little baby. But what we saw in the national championship game was when he puts those pads on, he is a certified dog. DAWG. His lip was banged up. His chin strap was pooled with blood like 7 minutes into the first quarter. Fernando Mendoza showed, I believe it was Holly Rowe at the end of the game, his arm. It was black and blue. His throwing arm was black and blue and bruised and battered. But that didn't stop him from reaching his arms out and putting his body in the most vulnerable position against one of the, if not the toughest defensive front in all of college football in order to will his team to victory. It was 4th and 5 from the 12 right there in that moment. And Fernando Mendoza talked post-game about how that was actually an RPO call. That was not a designed run. That was an RPO. Can you imagine the stones that it takes from Curt Cignetti and the trust that he has to have in his quarterback? When Indiana was up, they were up 3 in that moment. They could have just kicked it. Again, 4th and 5 from the 12 in the fourth quarter. Indiana could have just kicked it. But no, in that moment, Curt Cignetti said, I trust my quarterback. I will put the ball in his hands, and I trust him to make the right decision in the most critical moment in the game. That decision from Curt Cignetti and that play from Fernando Mendoza when he's getting ping-ponged and reaches out for the end zone was the difference between not being national champions and being remembered and revered forever for the rest of their lives and will be forever etched in the history of college football lore. So to your point, I understand there are some pessimistic Raiders fans out there. And if you're a pessimistic Raiders fan, I do not blame you. You haven't had a whole lot of hope to clutch on to in recent years. But Fernando Mendoza does feel like the kind of hope. But I still go back to organizations fail young quarterbacks far more than young quarterbacks fail organizations. The Raiders cannot fail Fernando Mendoza.
And that is why I think this becomes a transcendent moment for Tom Brady. Because Tom Brady is only a minority owner and he's a broadcaster. I get it. Tom Brady is not a GM. He's not a team president. He shouldn't have a role every day in the office. I understand it. Nothing changes the fact that in the minds of everybody, in the court of public opinion, Tom Brady is the one that's behind this pick, right? So whatever happens now, Tom Brady needs to be part of. And whatever happens moving forward, Tom Brady needs to be somebody that is making sure, and I've said this often, when you draft a quarterback first overall, not just now, but I'd say the same thing to the Titans last year, the Bears the year before. When you draft a quarterback first overall, every single person in your building, all the way down to the janitor, needs to speak the language of that quarterback. So if Fernando Mendoza has a certain way he likes things, great. Whatever you need to make sure that you are insulating him and communicating to him in the best language that gets the best out of him, all the way down to the cafeteria people. I need everybody in that room to have one goal, only one goal. It's not winning games. I don't give a damn about winning games. History will show you that first overall picks rarely win games their first year. In fact, only one first overall pick at the quarterback position has had a winning record as a starter in his rookie year. Only one. That was Andrew Luck since 2000. Every other one is at a losing record. The Raiders are going to lose games. That's what happens when you pick first overall. I don't care. What I care about is everybody in the building focused on development of Fernando Mendoza, because now that's more important than when you win. Tom Brady himself needs to make sure that the infrastructure is taking care of his quarterback. Tom Brady needs to make sure the person that knows what it takes for a quarterback to be surrounded with the right things needs to damn well make sure that the team he calls himself an owner of has that very infrastructure. If the Raiders don't get it right with Fernando Mendoza, if they ruin Fernando Mendoza, not the other way around, if the Raiders, to your point, ruin Fernando Mendoza, I'm looking squarely at you, Tom Brady, and I'm saying you should have seen it coming. You should have known what to do differently. You should have been the ear that everybody needed. You should have been the voice that everybody needed in their ear to make sure this didn't happen. If it doesn't, if Fernando Mendoza is ruined by the Raiders, shame on Tom Brady.
That is on Tom Brady. I mean, if you say Tom Brady has the opportunity to be transcendent, I mean, yeah, Tom Brady needs to add just a little bit more to his resume because I'm not totally convinced. I'm kidding. But yeah, that's why you
sucked as
have
an owner.
someone.
Michael Jordan sucked as an owner. That's always my clapback, you know?
And I think that's fair. I mean, just because you are an elite quarterback, greatest quarterback who's ever played the game, doesn't mean that you're going to be great at every single thing that you do. I don't think Tom Brady necessarily knocked anyone's socks off in his first year as a broadcaster, nor should we have expected that. But that's maybe the level of expectation and the standard that Tom Brady has set for himself. Whenever Tom Brady becomes part of an organization, and it is widely reported that Tom Brady's share of his ownership was wildly discounted. I think it's because the Raiders said, hey, we just want him in the building. We just want him part of the organization. And in Tom Brady's very short tenure as partial owner, what he's done is said, nah, I don't want Sam Darnold. I want Geno Smith. How's that working out for you, Tom? Because Geno Smith's in Cancun and Sam Darnold is preparing for an NFC Championship game. Again, just because you're the greatest player to ever play the position does not mean that you are a master evaluator, does not mean that you're going to be a master GMer, does not mean that you're going to be, an incredibly successful owner. But what I think Tom Brady can do is identify dysfunction within an organization, because he was a massive reason why the Patriots weren't just as functional as they are, but the Patriots were as well-oiled of a machine as they are. So I do, even if Tom Brady isn't the most perfect evaluator of talent that we've ever had in the history of the game of football, what I do think is Tom Brady's job is just make the Raiders a functional organization, give Fernando Mendoza a coach that's going to be able to help him develop, that's going to be able to identify the pieces that Fernando Mendoza needs around him. That is kind of where Tom Brady starts his new venture of being an owner, and it starts with Fernando Mendoza. But Fitz,
I also,
and we're talking about.
Let me say
Yeah,
one
yeah, go
other
ahead.
thing on that too. Tom Brady has the opportunity to be Alex Smith, and this sounds weird when I say that. Nobody knows what I'm referencing, but let me clarify. Patrick Mahomes has said many times in interviews that he credits the fact that he got to back up Alex Smith for a year, and Alex Smith told him how to be a pro, how to eat, what to do, who to hire to be around him, how to break down film, how to make his schedule. He is credited so many times in interviews that Alex Smith was a big part of teaching him how to be an NFL quarterback. The Raiders may not have an Alex Smith that can teach that. They got a Tom Brady. So even if Tom Brady's only work here is being in Fernando Mendoza's ear from day one about here's how you avoid distractions, here's what you need to do, here's what your Monday looks like, here's the best way to make Tuesday the most effective for you, here's how meetings can run better. There is so much knowledge to be shared from Tom Brady to Fernando Mendoza. I agree with you that, even if we're going to look at this and say Tom Brady's just an owner, right now he needs to also be a quarterback mentor for the team that he is a part owner for. Obviously, plenty of time to keep breaking down the Raiders in the draft, which we will do. We have breaking college football news. When we come back, we'll tell you just what it looks like. Plus, we'll get you our 2026 college football predictions.
Penn State has imported Iowa State. It's the best way I could explain it. Penn State has now taken Rocco Beck. They took RB1. They took wide receiver 1. They took 3 offensive linemen. I detest that this is how college football works at the moment, but it's the way it works at the moment. And that is when you take a head coach, part of the thinking behind hiring the head coach is who he can bring with him. And in Matt Campbell's case, it was basically whoever he wants.
I'm very fascinated to see which direction they go here, because I think that Roman, this is the deal with him. He's not terrible. He's not offensive as an offensive coordinator, but he can get you to a certain point. You need somebody else to get you to the next point. I think he's done a good job with Herbert, getting him to run more and getting him to push the ball down the field. Now I'd like to see, someone kind of just, again, give him some more quicker options. That's the type of stuff I'd like to see from the next coach.
Tom Aspinall, Cyril gone. That needs to be resolved, right? Hamzat Shemaiah versus Sean Strickland. But I will accept Hamzat Shemaiah versus Fluffy Hernandez. If Fluffy beats Sean Strickland, I'll take either of those. Here's another one of my, but you accept these as secondary.
100%.
Armin Sarukian versus UFC lightweight champion. We cannot just keep having Armin doing grappling matches and eating and all this stuff. He
I'm
must
kind of okay
fight
with
for
it.
No, I'm not.
No,
I know you love it.
You get the first pick in the underrated player draft. Who are you taking?
Jalen Duren has never made an All-Star game. He's never made an All-NBA team. He's gotten so much better as a scorer this year. Jalen Duren is like a legit All-Star this year. And so because everybody talks about the Detroit situation like it's trash and Cade Cunningham, I'm going to say he's still a little bit underrated, and he's my number 1 pick.
Breaking news, Pete Thamel tweeted, as widely expected, the college football playoff staying at 12 teams for 2026. A formal announcement is set for later today per ESPN sources. Caroline, this is really simple. The SEC and the Big Ten cannot agree on what the future of the college football playoff is supposed to look like. And as a result, we're going to just keep it at 12 because nobody can figure out how to get those two to play nice in the sandbox together.
Well, I think this is the best possible thing for college football. We have had a 12-team playoff for 2 years. 2 years. We don't really have it perfected. In fact, after the first year, we identified several issues with the 12-team playoff. Like, do we really need an automatic bye for the conference champions? Because that's where we get a situation where, Boise State gets a first round bye. No disrespect to Boise State, but a little bit ridiculous that Ohio State was playing on the first week of the college football playoff and Boise State was sitting at home, that Arizona State was sitting at home. And none of us thought that Arizona State and Boise State were better teams with better resumes than some of the teams that were playing on the first week of the college football season. Notre Dame playing on the first weekend of college football season. So now we have just one more year after that. We're still figuring it out. We have plenty of issues with the college football playoff structure. So my thought has long been, well, maybe we just figure out the issues with the 12-team playoff before we expand to 16, before we expand to 24, like some of the proposals reportedly that were out there. So I think this is a good thing for college football. I think that we need to stick with 12, figure out 12, and then really, once we figure out 12, then can we identify, do we need to expand to 16? Does it serve ourselves? Does it serve college football? Does it serve college football fans? Does it serve our product to expand? Okay, if everybody agrees that it does, then I'm fine with that. But how can we possibly be so certain and be so sure of that when we just have had 2 years of a 12-team college football playoff? And honestly, good for Greg Sankey and good for Tony Petitti, the commissioners of the SEC and the Big Ten, respectively, for not bending the knee on this one when there was a lot of pressure from other conferences and maybe even from ESPN itself, who knows, to expand the college football playoff. More games means more money in their pockets. More games and more teams means more opportunities for some of these other conferences to get representation in the college football playoff. Even if this would mean more money for the SEC and for the Big Ten, credit to the SEC and the Big Ten for saying, we are good on more money. We would rather do what's best for college football itself.
Well, to be transparent, as you well know, I have supported expansion. I love more football. I think you're right, though. Before we worry about expanding, let's worry about getting it right the way we have it. Instead of worrying about expansion and making more money as a cure for the college football calendar as it sits right now, the playoff calendar, let's put some real work into figuring it out as it sits right now, even with 12 teams. To your point, I think there is value in making sure you master what you have before you figure out how to change it. And I think tweaks within a system are far different than wholesale changes. Deciding that you're not going to allow first round buys anymore, that's a tweak within a system. Moving to 16 or 24 or however many teams they eventually try to move it to, that's a wildly new system. That's an all new calendar with all new everything. So I would love to see an actual mastered 12-team playoff format where everybody steps back and says, man, what this version is the best the 12-team playoff could ever be, from the schedule to the way the teams get in, all of it. It is absolute perfection. Now that it's perfection and everybody's in love with it, what does it mean and how do we move it forward? I think those are all fair things to happen in stages. Also, just a reminder for everybody yelling and screaming, if you did not see the ratings numbers for the national championship game, this is also a reminder that the college football playoff is obviously working. For all, me included, everybody yelling, oh my God, it's lost all momentum. It only turned out to be the highest rated college football game since 2014 and the second highest rated CFP playoff game ever. Also outdrew Ohio State.
Viewers.
Literally outdrew Ohio State Notre Dame from last year by a wide margin. So this whole nobody's going to watch, we've all forgotten about it. Fans don't like it. It's not right for them. Everybody can sit down, shut up, color in their books. All right, let's get to some headlines. All right, we love to do on Friday, Monday headlines today. But this time, instead, we're going to look way into the future. Extra, read all about it. 2026 college football headline predictions. Caroline, this is where we really, never too early to just lay it out on the line. I remind you, a year ago, we would all have said Arch for the Heisman. So let's see how this goes. Caroline, you get it. What's your headline for next year?
Well, I am a creature of habit, Fitz. So I will continue with the same prediction that we had last year and say a headline in December 2026. We'll read Heis Manning. This is one I don't even feel good about because when this happens, I'm not even going to clip this off and tweet it and say, I told you so, which is probably the appropriate thing to do when you call something a year in advance. But this just feels like low-hanging fruit. This just feels like the obvious thing. This just feels like the easiest 12-month in advance prediction that a human could ever make. I know we all did it last year. Not me, Not me. I didn't, because I was the one that was saying, can we pump the brakes a little bit? Can we all understand that Arch Manning, yes, his last name is Manning, and yes, he plays at Texas, but can we all just pump the brakes on a first-year starter? Because that's what Arch is. Because Arch got opportunities against UL Monroe and Texas San Antonio and whoever else in the group of 5. So maybe, just maybe, when he is the guy, when he takes over as a starter, when he's got SEC defenses swarming in his face week after week after week for the first time in his career, maybe he's not going to look very good. Maybe let's give Arch Manning some grace. Who said that? Me. I did. And who was right? Me. I was. But we saw a different Arch Manning in the last several weeks of the season than we did at the beginning of the season. It was very clear that Arch Manning was overwhelmed. Was he overwhelmed with what was asked of him in the offense? Was he overwhelmed with how to read defenses? Was he overwhelmed with just the sheer amount of pressure and attention that he was getting? I don't know. Probably a little bit of everything. But I do think that Arch Manning made his mistakes. He learned from them, and he was able to kind of take the expectations that were on his shoulders and turn that into a positive thing. And we saw that come to fruition in the final few weeks of the season. There is even a clip of him on the sidelines after the bowl game saying, I'm just not going to give up anymore. And I think that that's a really healthy approach. I'm just not going to care anymore what people think about me. I'm not going to care what people say about me anymore. And I do think that we're going to get an Arch Manning that plays so much more freely this upcoming season. Not to mention, he is one of the most brilliant offensive masterminds as his head coach in Steve Sarkisian. Not to mention that Texas is going to continue to invest so much money into this Texas roster, and that he's going to have some of the best weapons in the country around him. Highs Manning.
Look, I love this call by you, and I love the way you got there. Like, I think it's okay to admit that he needed time last year, and now he's starting to look like the Arch everybody thought he could be. And that's actually what I would love for the player. I'd love this redemption story where Arch, hey, he just needed some time on task. So I actually love that call by you. I will now troll you as co-hosts and friends often do. I will give you my first headline for next year's college football season, and it looks like this. LSU, LL loss. Third game of the season. 3 losses for LSU. I took a second and I looked at the schedule next year, and I get it. Like, it's Lane and everybody's happy with Lane and you're happy with Lane. So I'm just out here being Krampus when you really want Santa Claus. But here's the fact. Like, they open with Clemson. I don't think Clemson's a great football team, but I think opening weeks are weird. They have to go to Ole Miss, which is going to be the most fiery, like, will Lane even be able to get into the stadium? They have to take on Texas A&M over the course of that process, which is going to be a very good football team. They got to take on Bama, which is hard to predict. They got to take on your Heisman winner and Texas. It's easy for me to find 3 losses on this, even though I think Lane was the hire of the offseason, and I appreciate the storyline. LSU, LL lost. 3 losses next year. Everyone loses their minds, including you. Sorry.
Just because your team sucks doesn't mean that everybody around you has to be miserable. Okay?
Well,
Thank you. Thank you. I know.
Feels better.
But to that point, in 2024, Ole Miss had the number 1 transfer portal class. Ole Miss, I know. Ole Miss had the number 1 transfer portal class. Ole Miss spent more money on their roster than any other team in the SEC. And they lost 3 games and missed out on the college football playoff. So I don't think that this is crazy. Like, I don't think that this is the wildest prediction, because it's also Lane's first year at LSU. First-year head coaches don't traditionally get to the national championship game. Now, if LSU does lose 3 games, and that is my very measured and rational take and approach to this, to LSU potentially going 9-3. The irrational and unmeasured take is still the fact that the expectation is to get to the national championship game every single year at LSU. And when you land the number 1 transfer portal quarterback in the country in Sam Leavitt, and you also land another 4 or 5-star transfer portal quarterback in Husan Longstreet to back up Sam Leavitt, when you have landed as much talent in the transfer portal as Lane Kiffin has, and oh yeah, by the way, Lane Kiffin was able to retain 3 of LSU's best players from this past season. Their 6'7" tight end Trey'Dez Green, their leading rusher in Caden Durham, one of the top running backs in the country, and Whit Weeks, maybe his future son-in-law, who we shall see. that all just ratchets up the expectation. The expectations in Baton Rouge always have been, will continue to be sky high, but Lane Kiffin hasn't measured those expectations in the slightest. So while I don't think that this is a crazy prediction by you, Fitz, 3 losses, like, yeah, you just laid out the schedule. Clemson, Ole Miss, Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee, in Knoxville. Like, though, that's a tough schedule. Also, 2 of Lane Kiffin's former stops too in Ole Miss in Tennessee. So I'm sure he will be welcomed with open arms there. That doesn't mean that the expectation changes at all.
I can only imagine Whit Weeks has a bad game. Like, it's one thing to have a bad game for your coach, even your dad, but to have a bad game for your future father-in-law in a key moment, that comes up for the rest of your life at Christmas. Oof. All right, we've got more headlines to give you, but we got to wait for that because we want to sell you more newspapers. Coming up next, Ben Fawkes going to join us. We'll figure out Ben's mindset going into this weekend with some huge betting strategies. We'll give it to you next.
At the very top of my list, we need finality to Aspinall versus Gunn.
Yeah.
We need finality to this.
Have to.
I just want to see this fight play out because guess what? It was a very entertaining fight and it was playing out in a way that I think a lot of people didn't think it would play out. So I need to see that fight. I have to see that fight. The division needs to see that fight. They both need to see that fight. They both earned it and deserved it, and we can't move on without that fight.
Do the Spurs still take Dylan Harper over Con Knipple and VJ Edgecombe?
I think for me, if I was to do it all over again, I would still take the best pick available, and that is Dylan Harper. I mean, you see he just is such an elite creator.
Prior to the draft, Mo, I was pretty consistent in saying that I would trade down and take a Con Knipple. Con at 4, I still think would have been the best possible outcome for San Antonio, and I feel that way even more strongly at this point.
All football teams are dams. Some of them have a ton of cracks. Some of them have a few cracks. It's all about who faces enough water pressure from their schedule to expose the cracks. Most of the time when you're playing in the Big Ten or the SEC, you're going to face several tests that will expose your cracks. I don't think Ohio State did this year. They faced Texas early in the year, and they just never faced enough pressure to expose the cracks.
Did you notice that the scoring totals had fallen in the new year, that the New Year's resolution apparently was to bring physicality back?
A couple of years ago when it was all of a sudden everybody scored 50, 60, 70. And then like the air went out of the ball for a month. And it was like in the middle of the season, the way the rules were being called kind of changed and scoring started to drop.
Look, to be fair, Dan, it could be, hey, everyone just magically figured out how to play legal defense.
Ben Fawkes tweeted out, the Indiana Hoosiers win their first college football title. Indiana, 101, had the longest preseason odds at BetMGM of any college football champion since at least 2001, which is just a reminder how dumb it is that I didn't at least put pizza money on it. Good God. That tweet from Ben Fawkes, Yahoo senior betting analyst, who we bring in now to give us some perspective on this success. Okay, 100 to 1 odds. How does that compare to other championship teams that began as huge long shots?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still, here we are on Friday. It still is a little wild to think and say out loud that Indiana won a college football national championship, and as much as they dominated in the college football playoff. But here we are. We see Kendall Baker's tweet, of course, does a great job with the Yahoo AM newsletter. And they're basically the longest preseason title winner across all the major sports and college since 1999, right? So you had the St. Louis Rams that year with Kurt Warner. They were 150 to 1 preseason. Indiana was 100 to 1. And Fitz, I wouldn't feel too bad. A couple of the other teams just looked up this morning at BetMGM, also with 100 to 1 odds. You would have also had to maybe put pizza money on. We're looking at USC, Nebraska, Florida State, Kansas, Louisville was 80 to 1. So a lot of teams in that range that obviously didn't perform to that level. It just kind of shows, you know, how far out of left field Indiana came, even after that great season they had the previous year. And also a little bit, I think it's instructive to remember, some people haven't been covering sports betting for as long. There was a massive story in the Premier League with Leicester City, which was kind of this basement dweller in the Premier League. They won the Premier League title. They had at some sports books over their 5,000 to 1 odds before the season. And that kind of sent shockwaves through the industry. And sports books just don't offer basically the true odds or as long odds on futures because they don't want to be exposed in that same way. It's kind of, if Leicester City could happen, anything could happen. And so Indiana at 100 to 1, while those odds are significant, as we showed, and the longest since 1999, their true odds obviously should have been longer than that, right? So some of these teams, we've seen that also in the NFL, right? The Browns this season were 300 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. Like, their odds should be longer than that preseason. Same thing with the Saints, but books don't offer kind of those true odds as long as they should be. There are few teams now that are 1,000 to 1, 500 to 1 before the season even to win the Super Bowl. So really impressive by Indiana, and the few bettors that had them, because there were not a lot preseason, probably should have made even more money if the books had offered a little longer odds.
Ben, I always call around this time of year in the college football playoff, compare best team in the field to 2019 LSU season, because it feels like that happens every single year. But look, this year it's a fair comparison. Indiana, the first team ever to go 16-0 and win a national championship. LSU in 2019 at the time, first team ever to go 15-0 and win a national championship. So if these two teams hypothetically faced off on a neutral field, 2019 LSU, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson against Fernando Mendoza and this Indiana team, what would the hypothetical odds be?
Yeah, this is always when it's good that I try not to bother odds makers too much, so that when I ask these types of questions, which some are very keen to answer and some are like, oh my God, I got to answer a hypothetical, line between two teams that'll never meet. But in general, they're pretty good about answering these. I think it's a fun debate, right? Obviously, these teams aren't going to meet, but just to kind of see, okay, on a neutral field, what would they look like? And most odds makers really at LSU about a touchdown favorite. I also asked two handicappers in college football. One had LSU -7, one had LSU -8. The low of all, I probably asked about 6 to 10 odds makers. The low actually came in after this tweet at 4.5. Somebody had said later. And then the high was somewhere kind of LSU -10, maybe even a little higher in double digits, really just on the strength of that offense, right? And how stacked they were, as well as the defense was really good too. So just kind of seeing that even if people were saying Indiana might have a big coaching advantage, that LSU team was just so talented on the field that it might not matter, that they probably would still win the game. So again, they're not actually going to play. I think people get very up in arms on social media. It's like, what's the point of this? It's a fun, exercise, debate to have. I think it's instructive to use point spreads just as that first basis, right, for the debate. You can still have the debate on sports talk radio, but now we at least have a line to put against it. Which side would you bet, right? So it's just another fodder for sports talk radio as we slow down in the college football season.
All right, Ben. So let's take a look at the action this weekend. We have the AFC Championship game. The Patriots -4.5 right now at Denver. How much did Bo Nix missing this game? How much difference did that make in this spread?
Yeah, this is a fascinating game on a lot of levels. So this would have opened, according to most odds makers I spoke with, one had the Patriots as a favorite. But for the most part, Denver would have been a short favorite, call it 1.5, call it 2 points with a healthy Bo Nix. This basically opened New England -4.5, or if you want to go with the Broncos, instead of Broncos -1.5, Broncos +4.5, got up to +5.5. And so that's about a difference, right, of a touchdown. I think it's interesting. So I do the article I did for Yahoo before the season, asking all, I asked, 12 odds makers this year, basically to take the difference between the starting quarterback and the backup against the point spread. I averaged them together. Bo Nix to Jarrett Stidham, since he was the backup as well preseason, was 3.85 points on average. It basically was around 4 points is what kind of odds makers think the difference should be. If you take that difference, right, between Broncos -1.5 and +5.5, that's about a touchdown. So The market probably overreacted a bit initially because you wouldn't really say Bo Nix is worth a touchdown more than Jarrett Stidham. And just for perspective, that's as much preseason as Josh Allen was worth over Mitch Trubisky, basically, and Patrick Mahomes worth over Gardner Minshew. So that's like the top of the market, basically, that you can get in the NFL for a starter over a backup. So it probably over adjusted a bit. It's come back down a bit now to plus 4.5 or Patriots minus 4.5, which is also a significant line because that would basically be the largest home underdog that we've seen, largest underdog for a number 1 seed since 1970. And also home dogs have typically done well. As I tweeted out yesterday, the Broncos 4.5 point home underdog. Home dogs have at least 4 points, 10-0 against the spread with 6 outright wins since 1970. What would that be? 75, 76. So, right, all different teams doesn't mean that the Broncos are going to win or cover, but I do think it's interesting that they have at least covered the spread in every single one of those games, maybe showing, people and odds makers overreacting a bit to, in this case, obviously having the backup quarterback, and then home underdogs in that range performing well against the spread. So really good game. I think ultimately, if Jarrett Stidham, one of the big things Bo Nix does is avoid sacks. Is Jarrett Stidham able to do that? Do they make enough big plays? The New England defense has probably played its best 4 games, over the past month in the last 4 games. So can the Broncos get any run game going as well? New England's great against the run. And I think on the other side, does Drake May limit those turnovers? He's fumbled a lot in this postseason. He's gotten lucky. He hasn't lost all of those fumbles, but he hasn't been the same that player who potentially could win the MVP. So I think it's going to be a close game. Initially, it kind of seemed like, oh, the Patriots are going to crush them. And then the more you think about it as well with kind of Sean Payton, this is a challenge I think he relishes, right? Hey, look, I'm a coach. I'm going to take Jarrett Stidham and this team to the Super Bowl. So I think the Bronx will be ready to go. They have home field advantage. I think it's going to be a good game on Sunday.
You know what they say, Ben. Home dogs bark louder. I know all the residents of Stiddy City are going to hope that that's going to be the case. But I do want to turn to the NFC side of things. That's what there's a hashtag Stiddy City. I kind of like it.
There's a t-shirt there.
Brilliant. It's brilliant.
Yeah. I don't think I made that up, but if I did, marketing agencies, call me. Seahawks are 2.5 point favorites at home against the Rams. There has been a little bit of line movement, but every time it starts to creep up to 3, it comes right back down closer to 2. Who are the bettors backing in this one in the NFC Championship game?
Yeah, so kind of no surprise, right? The public is generally going to bet what they saw last. And what they saw last was the Seattle Seahawks absolutely take apart a San Francisco 49ers team that just beat the Philadelphia Eagles, the defending Super Bowl champions. So based off of that 41-6 win, the public is backing the Seahawks here, as you'd expect, kind of 65 to 70% of the bets at most sports books on Seattle. And I do think this line will probably stay in that range. I don't think it's going to necessarily get to 3. I think people will bet, respected bettors will bet the Rams +3 if it gets there. It probably also isn't going to move too much closer if it does to pick them either. So it's probably going to be right in this range. And these are the 2 best teams, right? Odds makers have the Rams number 1 before the postseason. They had the Seahawks number 2. A lot of advanced metrics have the Seahawks number 1, the Rams number 2. This is kind of the game we were hoping that we would get. But it is interesting because the Rams are actually the first team in the Super Bowl era to lose against the spread in both the wild card round and the divisional round, but advance to the conference championship. So they were road favorites in both those 2 games. They didn't cover the spread. They did win the game outright, which obviously in the playoffs is all you have to do. But for bettors, not as good for them. And in this game, they will be an underdog for the first time this postseason. Weather shouldn't be an issue. I think no Zach Charbonnet for the Seahawks is a big injury, certainly. And for the Rams, it's basically, can you get a running game going? Because that Seahawks defense, we've seen what they are against the pass and against the run. But if the Rams can't get that run game going, Matthew Stafford hasn't been great. I think 20 of 42 passing in one game, 24 of 42 in the other. His completion percentage is down. We don't know 100% if that finger is bothering him as well. A lot of factors in this game. It should be a great game between 2 teams. I'm kind of leaning Seahawks based just of how that defense has looked, and Darnold with another week as well for that oblique.
Is there a team in this situation that Vegas is worried about winning? Do they have liability somewhere?
For the most part, they're in good shape. You think of some of the public teams, right? The Bills gone, Bengals gone, Ravens, Chiefs, Eagles. A lot of books have 49ers. Actually, because a lot of books in Nevada, there's actually surprisingly a lot of Raiders liability, which they didn't have to worry too much about. Sorry, Fitz. But I think of the two, the Seahawks is probably the one that a couple books are in worse shape. There was one better, as I reported at BetMGM, who had 3 separate bets on the Seahawks in August. One was $50,000 each. One was on them to win the Super Bowl at 60-1, which would win $3 million. One was to win the NFC, which would win $1.4 million, and one to make the playoffs, which is already cashed, to win a little over $90,000. I believe, and again, it's difficult to exactly confirm because sportsbooks can't give the exact bettor identification, but I think this bettor also went to at least one other sportsbook and has another bet or bets in the 7 figures on the Seahawks as well. So this person or persons representing a group of other players stands to benefit significantly. The Seahawks are the worst case scenario for a couple sportsbooks, and then for a couple other sportsbooks, they're totally fine with Seattle. They didn't take some of those larger liability bets. So it's one of the things in the futures market, unlike generally like for a game, the public is probably going to bet the same way across sports books. The futures market's different. It just kind of depends if they get one of these big bets that can kind of skew it. And so some books have different needs than others.
Cue the conspiracy theorist galore everywhere. Always love it. All right, you can check him out, obviously, across Yahoo. You can read him, yahoo.com/betting. Follow him on Twitter. Ben, we appreciate your time, as always. Thanks for the brilliant insight. Enjoy a great weekend of games, my friend.
You too.
Oh, it's great
Thanks,
stuff
Ben.
from Ben. Coming up next, all sorts of lawsuits are trying to shape college football, college sports in general. We'll get you updated on eligibility and what it actually looks like right now.
One school that's doing some work in there right now, very quietly, is the Florida Gators. At the time of us taping this, Florida is sitting there with a top 10 class. And you're like, JD, wait a second. Florida's got a top 10 class? Who have they added? And I think this portal class in general for John Summerall is a good reflection of just the overall vibe, attitude, persona of what you're going to get from John Summerall during his time in Gainesville.
So now I've been thinking about the Denver Nuggets here for a little bit. Jamal Murray's gonna have to carry a torch during this program. Like I know it's the Fresh Prince of Bel Air looking around and no furniture around, but hey, he's gonna have to figure it out. What I will say that helps Denver is the return of this version of Aaron Gordon. And I very specifically mean this version of Aaron Gordon. And I know you might have a twinge of concern that he may do too much, but it was good early and they need it now.
Have you had a chance to kind of unpack all of it?
Yeah, I don't know that I have yet. I think it's just another reminder of how wild pro football can be. I've lived it so many times. I mean, I think going back a little over 2 years ago when I tore my Achilles to now, there's been a lot of curveballs and a lot of change. And I was told a long time ago in pro football, you got to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I'm reminded of that time and again.
How long do you feel like that window is with Lamar, though?
I think you can get 2 more years of Lamar as a locked-in top 5 guy. And then I think after that is when it's like, okay, maybe he ages to more being a top 12 guy, which is still good. Maybe more of a tier 2 guy in my brain. And then it kind of ages from there. Russ went from like a tier 2 guy that fell off to a tier 3, tier 4 guy. You're going to have that drop off at some point in your career.
Get ready for your quick law school run through here. Sources tell Chris Hummer that there's growing optimism that Trinidad Chambliss will end up being granted an injunction by a court in Mississippi that would allow him to play in 2026. He sued the NCAA on January 16th. So understanding that he applied for an eligibility waiver. The NCAA denied it. In an attempt to get that overturned, he then filed a case through the Mississippi State courts. Now there's optimism that he will get an injunction. This is wild, but this is where we are now, Caroline, in modern college athletics, where you've got a bunch of players that are suing for more opportunity to continue to play. So we're going to play Judge Judy here, all right? We're going to figure out whose side we are on for some of these. So let's start with Trinidad. Where are you on this, Judge Caroline? Caroline's Court. Ooh, Caroline's Court. Workshopping this as we go. Instead of Judge Judy, Caroline's Court. Who are you ruling in
Judge
favor
Jason.
of here? Trinidad or the NCAA? Oh, Judge Jason. Yes, I'm in. All right.
It's perfect. I do believe that anyone who covers college football for a living deserves an honorary legal degree because, man. But on this, I am on Trinidad Chambliss' side for a couple of reasons. One, he is applying for a medical waiver because in 2022, when he was at Ferris State, he is, and part of his case here is that he had respiratory issues that did not allow him to play, or at least not enough in order for it to be considered a full year of eligibility, kind of like a redshirt year, so to speak. So if that is the case, if Trinidad Chambliss wasn't able to play more than the 4-game threshold for redshirting, then he should have another year of eligibility. That is just what's fair. That's what's right. That's what the rules say. So that's the one thing. The second thing is I just think Trinidad Chambliss is good for college football. He is so incredibly fun to watch, and his story is great for college football. I think the Indiana National Championship has gotten me all in my feels about the Cinderella story that is college football. You have guys like Diego Pavia that came from the JUCO ranks that then found himself in New York City. Same thing with Fernando Mendoza. He was going to Yale, and then he changed course, went to Cal. Then he ultimately ended up winning the Heisman and winning a national championship. You look at guys like Stetson Bennett, who started at JUCO and then won back-to-back national championships at his dream school as a kid in Georgia. Trinidad Chambliss is the same way. He started at Ferris State. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody even knew who Trinidad Chambliss was going into the season. He wasn't the starter at Ole Miss. Austin Simmons, the starting quarterback, gets hurt. Trinidad Chambliss comes in, and then the rest is history. They find themselves in the national championship semifinal. I just love everything that has been the story of Trinidad Chambliss, and I think he deserves another year.
Yeah, look, and at the end of the day, I just want to remind everybody that attending class as a college student has been a sham for a very long time. So if your answer is about, well, they shouldn't stay in college that long, our good friend, one of my closest, dearest friends in the world, Mike Golick Jr., tweeted out, as a fifth-year senior, non-degree seeking grad student in 2012, I took a directed reading class, guitar lessons, and one on-campus class that met twice a week. I was an academic All-American that year. All right, so like this whole
congratulations, Gojo.
But he's not going. I know it's like Gojo. All these years I've been giving him credit for being an academic All-American. I learned that even that was a fraud. But above and beyond that, like all of these,
we didn't come here to play school.
Well, how can we? I mean, how can we sit here and let him continue to pretend he's a college kid? We've been doing that forever. I don't know why we're so worried about limiting eligibility for somebody that obviously, like, he wants to come back. He can find enough classes to let him come back. Just like, we have talked much about quarterbacks that are barely on campus. Okay. I just don't see what the big deal is with him deciding to come back and play. He hasn't stepped into the NFL. Let him keep playing college football. Hell, if somebody wants to get their doctorate and they want to keep playing until they're 30, I don't care. If they want to become a medical doctor while they're a football player, I don't care. If they're just sitting in school, if they're doing enough in class, whatever that is, one class, if it's 3 classes to be an academic All-American, congratulations, let them play. How about this lawsuit then? Let's take a look at this one. It's complicated. Duke is suing their quarterback, Darian Mensah, who entered the transfer portal last Friday. Now, they're claiming a breach of a multi-year NIL contract that ends December 31st, 2026. You see it here in the quote, the school seeks an injunction and restraining order in Durham County Superior Court to effectively block Mensah from leaving the Blue Devils and joining another program. We still don't know how this is going to play out. He was trying to transfer to Miami. It looks like Duke is blocking it because of the contract that they have in place, saying he must honor it. They're even talking about some tampering in this. This is a wildly complicated legalese. So where do you fall on this in Caroline's court?
Tampering? When Darian Mensah entered the transfer portal in the 11th hour after every other transfer portal quarterback committed everywhere other than Miami? Tampering? What? Of course Miami tampered. Of course. But also, Darian Mensah, welcome to being an adult. When you get paid like an adult, you get treated like an adult. If you signed a contract, which Duke is alleging that he did, and I think it's pretty easy to find that paper trail, You are legally bound to that contract. I'm sorry if you're getting more money elsewhere. I'm sorry if you'd rather be at Miami other than Duke, but you signed a contract and now you have to abide by the terms of that contract. But let's say Duke wins this and Darian Mensah has to legally come back to Duke and quarterback for Duke. That's kind of awkward, isn't it? Darian Mensah entered the transfer portal and basically told Duke, I don't want to be here anymore. I want to go to Miami. Duke takes him to court, and there is all of this, very feudal back and forth. There's obviously some tension between Darian Mensah's people and Duke's people. So Darian Mensah's just going to come back and quarterback for Duke next year? That's a little uncomfy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is uncomfy, but the other side of it is like Duke is sort of doing God's work right here. I hate to say this, but this is just part of all of this life. He has an existing contract. And I've certainly, in my entire life, when I was his age, I was dealing with contracts in the music business. And sometimes you sign it and almost immediately afterwards you realize, man, that wasn't the right thing to do. I can't believe somebody talked me into it. I can't believe I decided to do it. These are all things that I've lived in my own life, but it doesn't change the fact that once you've signed that deal, you've signed that deal. So, asking him to honor the contract that he signed, even if people find that to be an oversimplification, even if they don't like the deal. The first record contract I ever signed in my life literally controlled my name, image, likeness, essentially everything in the entire universe. That was literally written in the deal, was in the entire universe. And then you look at it years later and you say, oh my God, what a terrible contract. Well, just like every other artist that has to find your way out of bad record contracts, it's part of growing up. So I feel for him that he has to deal with this, but he signed the deal. And in today's NIL world, get better attorneys if you're going to sign those sorts of deals.
A couple of things, too. I've heard a lot of Duke fans moaning about how the transfer portal is ruining college football. Darian Mensah transferred from Tulane. Duke kind of screwed Tulane over the same way Miami is trying to do to Duke. So the transfer portal giveth and the transfer portal taketh away. The second thing is, if I'm Commissioner Jim Phillips, the commissioner of the ACC, I am intervening as quickly as I possibly can. You cannot have one conference school directly and obviously tamper into another conference school and, for lack of a better term, totally and completely screw them over. I think this is a nightmare scenario for Jim Phillips and how this all turns out.
No, 1,000% right. Let's get one more in here. Last court hearing of the day. Charles Bediako of Alabama men's basketball granted a temporary restraining order, is immediately eligible to play for the Tide. Why is that a big deal? He's a professional player for the Motor City Crews of the NBA G League. How do we rule on this one, Caroline?
How does this happen? I remember a time that when you declared for the draft and you went pro, you were no longer eligible with the NCAA. So no, he should not be able to come back to college just because you didn't get the deal that you wanted to in the NBA, just because life in the NBA isn't turning out how you wanted it to. Too bad, so sad. I go back to, you want to be an adult, you're going to get treated like an adult. And sometimes being treated like an adult means not getting what you want. So I don't think that there's a world where this should be allowed. When you are a pro, you are a pro. You cannot go back to college basketball. I mean, LeBron's never played in college basketball. Technically, he still has 4 years of eligibility. Does that mean LeBron's going to lace up for the Crimson Tide too?
Hey, I'd love to see that. I think what complicates this one a little bit is how pro is the G League. And I realize you're making a check, so maybe that makes it professional enough. I think once you've stepped on the court in the NBA, you shouldn't be able to step into, even if it's on a two-way, you shouldn't be able to step back into college basketball. I agree with that. But in this new world of basketball where so often you've got European kids that have been playing professional basketball in Europe for years and they're still eligible to play in the NCAA, I think part of what makes this difficult is that I see the G League as just a developmental alternative to the NCAA basketball path. So it's not, it's pro, but it's not really pro to me. That's where maybe I'm splitting hairs and maybe I'm dissecting this to try and help the kid out. And you're right. There is some action consequence here, but do you buy into maybe the G League because it's not quite pro? Would that change your mind at all?
No, it's not the Savannah Bananas. It's not the Harlem Globetrotters. That I would understand. But if you go and you play minor league baseball for a couple of years, you cannot come back and play college baseball. While it is not Major League Baseball, while it is not the NBA, it is still league affiliates. So that, to me, that is professional.
You do make a strong point, considering everybody I know that I'm friends with that played in Major League Baseball will tell you that they call it playing professional baseball from the day that you get into the minors.
It is.
So it is an interesting, you may have changed my mind. Here I am. Like, that's why if we were the Supreme Court, the two of us, I just was swayed. I was going to write the dissent. Now, no, we're all in. We agree on this. Take it away. Take the eligibility away. What I know is it's going to be a wild weekend. We'll be back right here on Monday morning at 9 a.m. to get you caught up on all of it. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Thanks for watching. Come back, see us Monday. Have a great weekend.
Give us your breakout fighters of 2026.
You're not going to believe that. Number one is Manchester top teams, Atiba Gutierrez. I think he's going to be the next big African star. Already is.
He's chiseled out of stone. He's got unbelievable power, great skill, huge for the weight class. Very, very impressive. And again, you speak to the guys over at Manchester top team, they could not be more excited about his potential.
Usually I would dunk on a team that's 8-9 going to the playoffs. You don't deserve it. For Carolina, celebrate it. This was a big step forward season. However you got there, you wanted some hope. You wanted something to be happy about. You backed into it, fine. I don't care. The Panthers did have some quality wins this year. They did seem to be making progress. So for the Panthers, hey, step forward, good job, celebrate it. It's a really nice year for the Carolina Panthers to win this division no matter how they did it.
I don't know how anyone could expect Kalen DeBoer to get Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it, because he's not going to. I would suggest to you that had Nick Saban stuck around at Alabama, he wasn't getting Alabama back to where Nick Saban had it a decade prior. And that's Nick literal Saban. I don't think Kirby Smart's getting Georgia back to what Georgia was a few years ago. Dabo's not going to get Clemson back to what Clemson was. It's almost like the entire world has changed.
Oh, let's get to another factory of sadness. The Atlanta Falcons, who fired Raheem Morris after 2 8-9 seasons.
You got Bijan Robinson, you got Drake London. That was what Raheem Morris said when they asked him, why did you take this job?
Yep.
And you still got those guys. And you still got those two guys.